Today, we're going to be breaking down who has the best throwing motion to study, to look at in the NFL. And to my mind, two quarterbacks pop up. And these two quarterbacks are very, very different in build and play style, but they check off the mechanical boxes that all elite passers have. Guys, you have to understand that every single human on earth, every single quarterback is built a little bit different than one another, right? Every single quarterback has a different genetic makeup. That some have long arms, some have short arms. So like the way they take the ball back, the way they hold the ball, the way they do certain things is all going to be different. You guys shouldn't be worried about those specific areas and try to copy those areas of a quarterback. You should try to copy the key areas that generate efficiency in your throw. And that comes down to something called your throwing sequence, your kinetic sequence. Some people call it a kinetic chain, but it has to do with the biomechanics of the body. And that's what we're going to break down today and make it totally simple for you guys to be able to understand it and apply it to your own game. So the two quarterbacks in reference are going to be Aaron Rodgers, and then the second quarterback in reference is going to be Anthony Richardson. So we're going to break down Aaron Rodgers' motion because he's a proven success, right? He's probably one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the game, right? So it's a proven success. What he does works. It makes him a very efficient passer. Anthony Richardson is not, but we're going to pay attention to the mechanical similarities that Anthony Richardson has to Aaron Rodgers and why he's got a rocket for an arm and why I think he's going to be a very, very efficient passer if he stays healthy and does what he needs to do. So your throwing sequence, guys, is going to be broken down into four specific parts. The first part is going to be your base. I think of throwing a football in terms of how you generate power a lot like hitting a baseball. It's really the same type of idea because quarterbacks will generate power and efficiency from their hips and from their legs. But it's not so much about just their hips and legs pushing them, transferring weight from their back leg. It's about the timing in which they transfer that weight from their back leg to their front leg and the timing when their hips fire through. It's all about your sequence and it's all about the timing of your sequence, right? So the first part of everybody's throwing sequence, a baseball hitter, a quarterback, is the base. You want to get to a position I call being stacked. Being stacked means that your head, your knee, and your foot are all stacked on top of each other. This is something, guys, that every single elite level passer has. It's not something that just Rodgers has or Anthony Richardson has. They all have this base where a majority of their weight, I would say probably 60 to 70% is loaded onto their back leg. Now, the reason why they have weight on their back leg is the same reason that a baseball hitter has weight on their back leg. Number one, it's so they could take that weight and transfer it to the front leg to generate power and a whip from their lower body, right? But they also have weight on their back leg so they can delay their shoulders and get to a concept called hip and shoulder dissociation. So shoulder and hip, or you could say upper body and lower body dissociation. That's just a fancy word for separation. That means that when your front foot gets down and makes contact with the ground, you don't want your front shoulder opening up where everything is rotating open at the same time. That's not dissociation. Dissociation is separation. You want your shoulders and the football to rotate back as your front foot is taking a step to the quarterback. Now, all of you can try this. Put all of your body weight onto your front foot. Let's say you're a right-handed quarterback. Put all your body weight on your front foot and try to rotate your shoulders back. You can't do it, right? Now put all of your body weight onto your back leg and try to rotate your shoulders in this direction. I'm drawing the arrows here. It's a much cleaner rotation. So to be able to rotate my shoulders back and get to that dissociation position with my lower half, I got to keep weight on my back leg. And what is that a lot like? That's a lot like a baseball swing, right? So you got a baseball hitter in the batter's box. Pretend this is a bat, not a football. Pitcher throws a pitch. What do? You take a step to the pitcher, but you keep the bat back here. You would not be able to keep the bat back here if when you took a step to the pitcher, your head, your shoulder, your body weight all shifts in this direction when you take that step. Your shoulders would come open and the bat would have nothing on it. You want to keep some weight behind your stride so your shoulders and the bat and the football in a throwing sense can be separate from the lower body, can be behind the lower body. So when that foot strike gets down in the ground, now what we could do is transfer that weight. You want to transfer that weight and drive your hips after the front foot gets down. So when your shoulders delay back and then you decide to transfer that weight, the hip drive comes through before the shoulder and before the football, aka the baseball bat. Everybody understands a baseball swing. It's harder for guys to get it in a football sense, but that's why I compare the two. So remember, let's talk about throwing sequence because that's what passers want to shoot for. This starts with the base. We want to be stacked. And we want to stay stacked when I take the second part of my sequence, which is the stride. So it comes down to the base. Then on my stride, I want to stay back. And the reason why I stay back is so my shoulders can delay. So now the third part of the sequence is the weight transfer from my lower body and the hip rotation, right? And that has to happen at the right time, aka after the stride and before the shoulders. And when I can do that and you decide to transfer your weight, your back hip drives through, and this football is essentially like trailing your hip. They call it chasing your hip. Your hips here, elbow and football are there. That is an efficient position. That takes pressure off of your arm, you guys, because now I'm using my legs and my hips at the right time. When you can get to something called the C curve, like how Rodgers' arm, hip, and knee, it all looks like the letter C. That's efficiency. That's going to give us power, but that's going to be consistent power and sustainable power because it's not a ton of pressure on my elbow and on my shoulder. One of the common mistakes that people will make. And then the last part of the throwing sequence, part 4, is the ball, is the release point, right? So just releasing that ball off your hand after your hips go through. The mistake people make, guys, is that they want to push off of this back leg when the front foot gets down. Front foot makes contact with the ground. You see how Rodgers still stays stacked? Head, knee, foot. He keeps his shins straight. So many young quarterbacks, what they'll do is they'll push off of this foot. Their weight will transfer as their front foot is getting down, and their head is almost over here where I drew this X when their front foot makes contact. So if all your weight pushes forward, guys, and your front foot's down on the ground, you have no dissociation. So your shoulders won't be able to go back. So that not only when you push does your hip, your knee, your foot, everything get left behind you, your shoulders and the football will beat your back hip, and then you're not even using your hips and your legs. You might as well just throw all arm. So this is what we want to shoot for, you guys. Now, if you don't believe me, that's fine. I'm just talking here, right? Let me show you Anthony Richardson, and let's talk about some of the mechanical efficiencies that he has. And guys, you watch any top passer, Brady, Mahomes, Josh Allen, anybody throws the hell out of the football, they all have this sequence in common. They all throw it different. They're all built different. They're all different athleticism, but the sequence they have in common. So let's play this full speed, and then we'll take a look at Anthony Richardson's motion and break down the exact same type of thing. But before we get into that, you guys, if you're a quarterback watching this video and you guys would like a daily training schedule to follow in the offseason, check out that very first link in the description below for our Elite Quarterback Training Package. What you'll get access to, you guys, is an 8-week on-field workout schedule for quarterbacks. We break down mechanic drills, footwork drills, throwing drills, routes versus air, all the drills that you need to do, and put it into a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of schedule, break down the exact sets and reps to follow, and we give you a video example of each specific drill and workout. Plus, we include an 8-week quarterback gym-specific workout plan that you can do. We include the exact gym exercise that quarterbacks can do to tie into their throwing mechanical sequence like we break down in this video. So guys, if that's of interest to you, check out that very first link in the description below. Again, very first link in that description below for our Elite Quarterback Training Package. We'd love to have you on that. Let's get back to this video. So let's take a look at Anthony Richardson here, right, guys? So again, again, does mechanics guarantee that you're going to be a great quarterback? No. There's so many things that tie into playing the quarterback position. Staying healthy, reading defenses, decision-making, right? But what mechanics will do is make you have a stronger arm, be more accurate because you're not relying on your arm to make a throw. A lot of quarterbacks, when they don't use their hips properly, we're rotational athletes as quarterbacks. So guys will dip their head, pull their elbow, lean out with their shoulder, which affects their release, and it can make them inconsistent. So mechanics help with accuracy, arm strength, and sustainability. As a young quarterback, guys, if you're watching this, you need sustainability. If you're constantly throwing with bad habits, your arm is not going to be able to take it. Because what is at the quarterback position nowadays, guys, you are throwing probably 12 months out of the year. You have 7-on-7, you have spring ball, you have high school ball, you have your actual season. It's very rare that you get downtime, especially you guys that play 7-on-7. So if you don't have good mechanics, it's going to catch up to you. I promise you that. I've seen so many guys in the recent years have the same elbow injury where they break a growth plate, snap a growth plate. They have strain in their elbow. Now all of a sudden we're throwing and we're on a pitch count because we're afraid to injure your arm, and it comes from bad habits. That's why mechanics are important. Does it guarantee you're a great quarterback? No. Anthony Richardson is not a great quarterback yet in the NFL standards. Aaron Rodgers is, but they have mechanical similarities, and this is the type of stuff that I want you to study and I want you to learn about, because these types of things will make you a more efficient passer in your own game. in your own game. These can be applied to your own game. We're not talking about arm slots. We're not freaking talking about how you carry the ball. Is it up by your ears, down by your chest? We're talking about a throwing sequence and a kinetic sequence, right? So let's take a look at this, right? Anthony Richardson and his base. Where's he at right now? Remember, there's 4 parts of the throwing sequence, right? First part is the base. We want to be stacked. His head, his knee, his foot, they're all stacked. What's the second part? Taking a stride. But when you take that stride, do you want to remove from that stacked position? No. When that foot makes contact with the ground, guys, you want to try to keep your back shin straight. Your foot, your knee, your head, they are all in line. And the reason why we keep my weight back is so I could do what? I could separate my shoulders from my lower body, right? It's called upper body and lower body dissociation. So he goes back with the ball. His front shoulder is rotating back. His front foot is anchoring down. Now, what's the next step? What's phase 3? That's the weight transfer. So he takes that weight from his back leg that he was keeping back. He's transferring it and shifting it to the front leg. So what happens now? That weight transfer, that shift of the weight to the outside part of your quad, drives the back hip through, opens up the front hip. And now what happens? You see how the elbow, the football, the shoulder is chasing his back hip. His hip is firing through first, and then he just snaps and throws. And you see how he doesn't need to pull the elbow down. He doesn't need to lean because he's using his hips. But it's not just about the legs and the hips. It's about the timing of the hips. It happens after the foot strike and before the shoulders. And you keep your weight back on the foot strike, you're going to be able to delay your shoulders so those hips fire through at the right time. Because, guys, a lot of quarterbacks, like we mentioned, what they'll do is on that foot strike, their body weight starts to shift forward. And when they starts to shift forward and your head is stacked with like the front side of your body and your back hip, your back knee, your back foot all trail behind. To get the ball there, especially on longer throws, guys will dip their elbow. They'll dip their head, and that will cause that release point to fly outside their frame. You see how Richardson, when he throws, this hands up by his frame, his shoulders and his hips are parallel. That's because he's using his hips. If he wasn't using his hips, his head would be dipping this way. His elbow would be dipping this way because you have to get the ball there, and that's what flaws the release. You want to think of your body like there's an imaginary line that goes down the middle of your body called the midline. If that drops, that brings the release up. If your front shoulder is ripping open and you're leaning with your head, that brings your release a little too wide and you're coming across your frame. So remember, guys, mechanics is about accuracy, efficiency, arm strength, and taking pressure off your arm so we could be sustainable. But again, guys, these are the 2 best motions. This is what we look for. This is exactly what we teach. And you see a veteran of the game, veteran of the position doing it, and you see somebody who's new doing it. And again, these things is what the best have in common.